I tested 30 different mice, I tried magnesium shells that weigh almost nothing and high-tech beasts with 8000 Hz sensors. And I realized that the industry is kinda lying to us. The fastest mouse on paper is often the hardest to control when the match is on the line. So from those 30 mice, I took the best 3 mice in the world and put them through a 15-hour data audit to find the one that removes every excuse. 2 of these are near perfect, only one is truly endgame, so here is what $2000 of testing actually teaches me. Now I am a tactical shooter player, I play Valorant and CS, but to find the best mouse I had to stop playing matches and start looking at the data. So I use Kovacs as a lab, and I spent 15 hours doing tracking and flicking tests to see exactly where these mice will fail. Now to push them to the limit, I tested them on a glass pad. Most of you will use cloth pad, but glass is the ultimate stress test. On glass there is no friction to hide mistakes. If a mouse shape is unstable or the sensor has tiny stutters, you will feel that instantly. Now I knew that if a mouse stayed consistent in this hard mode environment, it would be a weapon on a normal cloth pad. So this audit forced me to look past the weight. I had to look at how my hand actually grips the mouse and how the signals are processed inside the shell. But before we talk about the tech, we have to also talk about the trap that almost every big brand falls into. And I'm going to talk about safe shapes. Now I spent a lot of my $2000 on the industry standards, the Logitech G Pro Superlight and the Razer Vipers. These are great mice, but they have one problem. They use safe shapes. They are rounded and curved to fit everyone, but that also means that they don't really lock anyone in. In a high-stake duel, your fingers can shift a tiny bit on a rounded mouse. This is where the OP1 shape is different. It uses flat sides. This creates what I call the pincher force. On a rounded mouse, your thumb and pinky are pushing against the curve. If you squeeze hard, the mouse wants to tilt or rotate. On flat sides, your finger push straight against each other. 100% of your grip strength goes into moving the mouse, not fighting the shape. Now this will give you a biomechanical anchor. It ensures your hand lands in the exact same spot every time you pick it up. So once you have a shape that anchors your hand, the torque moves to speed. But speed on a box isn't really always the same as speed on the screen. The industry is racing for that 8K Hz polling rate. They tell us that faster sensor is the only way to win. But during my search, I found that click latency is just as important as sensor speed. I tested the Finalmouse ULX at 8K Hz, and in my experience, it feels inconsistent. I felt tiny stutters that ruined the smooth feeling of my 480 Hz monitor, felt like the tag was being pushed faster than the software could handle. Then I tried the Endgame Gear OP1w 8K. Now this mouse uses something called SPDT switch logic. Think of it like this. Most mice wait for a signal to reach a certain point before they count as a click. The OP1 uses a second signal to confirm that the click happened immediately. It makes your shot feel telepathic. You might have that 8K sensor, but if your click is slow, you still lose the duel. Now this creates a dilemma. Do you take the 50-gram wire mouse with the best tech, or do you sacrifice weight for the freedom of wireless? Now the OP1 8K is the raw performance king. It is wired and is 10 grams lighter than the wireless version. In a world where we fight over 2 grams, 10 grams is a huge deal, but on a fast setup, a cable is a problem. Even with a great bungee, a cable is like a spring. When you flick left, the spring is loose. When you flick to the right edge of the pad, the spring gets tight. This is variable resistance. It means the weight of your mouse actually feels different depending on where it is on the pad. On cloth, you don't notice it. On glass, you feel every single millimeter of that pull. Now the wireless OP1 is heavier at 58 grams, but it gives you a movement parity. It feels exactly the same 100% of the time, no matter where is it on the desk. And for me, that consistency is worth the 10 gram penalty. But there is one more thing that ruins performance: the coating. Many mice like the ULX are slippery. You have to use a grip tape, but grip sometimes add width. If you buy a small mouse and add tape, you just ruin the shape you paid for. Now the OP1 uses a chalky coating that sticks to your hand as it gets warm. You don't really need the tape unless you really kinda want it. The shape kinda stays poor all the time. But before I tell you which one is my main, we have to fix the software. Most mice ship with the settings that actually make you slower. There are 2 settings you need to change immediately. Most players leave this on default, and it's a mistake in my opinion. First, motion sync. Just turn it off. This feature tries to make your movement look smooth on a graph, but the smoothing adds a tiny little bit of delay. It makes your aim feel like floaty, if that makes sense. After 8000 hours, I don't really want smooth, I want raw input. I want the sensor to report exactly what my hand does, the millisecond it happens. Now the second setting is something exclusively to the OP1. It's called GX Speed Mode. Now this, you want to have it enabled. It works with that SPDT logic. It basically removes the safety delay that most mice have to prevent double clicking. Also you have a lot of other settings like sensor angle tuning. If you wanna play around with that, it's actually kinda useful, but if you want to switch mices a lot, I don't really recommend it that much. And you also have angle snapping and ripple control. Now in my opinion, I would just stay away from these settings because they will just teach you bad aiming. But if you aren't ready to spend like $150 on these mice, do what I call renting a shape. Buy like a $40 or a $60 clone, like an Attack Shark R3. Use it for a week, If you hate the shape, you only lost like $40. If you love it, then you can upgrade to the premium version with a better coating and a stabilized firmware. Now, with the tech optimized and the finalist ready, I finally had to choose. Only one mouse removed every excuse. Now, after 30 mice and $2,000, it came down to a choice between the Finalmouse ULX, the OP1 8K, and the OP1 wireless. Now, the ULX is an amazing piece of art, but the shape didn't lock my hand in, if that makes sense. It's basically a smaller Viper V2 Pro from Razer. Also, the fact that the mouse is super expensive and Finalmouse is kinda scummy with their drops, I wouldn't really recommend it that much. Now, the OP1 8K is the fastest mouse I've ever used, but the cable pull on a fast pad was a distraction I couldn't ignore. So, the winner of my audit is the Endgame Gear OP1 4K V2. It isn't the lightest, but of course you can mod it with a lot of stuff that you can find on the internet to make it like 40 grams if you're really into that. It isn't also the fastest on a spec sheet, but the flat sides anchor my hand better than any other mouse. The build is solid and the wireless freedom gives me total certainty. Now, my search for the perfect mouse wasn't about finding the lowest weight, it was about finding the setup that stayed out of my way. So stop chasing the gram count, look for the shape that actually anchors you and firmware that gives you the raw truth. And now the algorithm also thinks that you might want to watch the next video.